So it's so loud.
Really?
And I'm Mike Bergen, I represent Society County. There's the thank you for
I'm Steve Holland, County Commissioner.
Representing Nova Company. Christy Lowe, I stand as County Commissioner.
Dan Over, Chicago County Commissioner.
Mark Keiko, Board of Water and Soil Resources. I'm Laura Jester, Keystone Waters.
Craig Mel, Saugus on Water.
Okay.
All right.
Great.
How about the people?
Suggestion before we ask our people back here to join us. Oh, there's plenty of room.
We've got room today.
And Kristen, do you want me to have the people online introduce themselves as well?
Yes, I would love for people online.
Okay. Well, let's see. I see. Let me go with policy committee members first. I see Diane Blake.
Hi, Diane Blake, Washington Conservation District.
All right. And then I see Kevin.
Kevin Chaplain, board member of South Washington Watershed District.
I see Brian.
Brian Zeller, Middle St. Croix Water Management Organization.
Okay, and I think that is all for the policy committee members. So then we've got a number of staff people online as well. So how about Jen? Do you want to kick it off with intros?
Sure. Hi, Jennifer Hahn. Sorry that I'm not there in person today. I'm actually sitting in my car while we're doing another appointment. I'm the Lower St. Croix Watershed Partnership Outreach Agronomist / Extension Educator.
Excellent. Tom.
I'm Tom Dietrich, planner with Washington County.
Let's see, Matt. Matt Moore, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here, Angie. Sorry.
That's okay.
Matt Moore, Administrator, South Washington Watershed District. Do you see John?
I don't see John yet, but here, why don't I just stop sharing and then everybody should show up on the screen again, right? No, they're not showing up on the screen. Well, isn't that silly? I don't see John Loomis.
Okay, John's gonna start attending meetings.
Okay. But I do see there was actually two Toms because I see there was also Tom Langer.
Yeah, Tom Langer, Carnelia Marine, St. Croix Watershed District.
All right, and then Susanna.
Hi, Susanna Wilson Witkowski with Chisago County.
Okay, and then Tiffany.
Hi, Tiffany Betterman, I Santee Soil and Water staff.
Sorry, I'm just doing this so that I can get the view of the people up there for you all to see them. Okay, and then Emily.
Good afternoon, everyone. Emily Hines with Comfort Lake Forest Lake Watershed District. I'm on staff.
Okay, now I think everybody in the room is seeing you and seeing the presentation instead of only seeing the presentation. Okay, there we go. We made it. And now you probably need me to go back to the cool.
Very exciting.
Back to the agenda here. All right, it looks like John Loomis is joining us.
Is there a motion?
I'll second.
All in favor of approving the agenda, say aye. Aye.
All right.
Well, then we're down to the minutes. Is there a motion to approve our minutes from last meeting? I will make that motion with one correction. Sure. On page 3, under shared education program. Eighth line down, it should be Loon Brewery instead of Moon.
Oh dear. Got it.
Moon, yeah.
Yeah. I like the loons more than the moons in this case. Yeah, we'll correct that.
Okay. So that was a motion to accept that. All right. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor of approving the minutes from the last meeting, say aye.
Aye.
So now we're down to 2022 activities report.
Okay. So this, I believe, is Barbara, do you need me to?
I will need you to take over.
Yep. Let's just switch spaces then.
So we're excited to bring you the 2022 activities report. It is July. It is kind of in the middle of the year. And so we do have some plans in place following into the fall and early into next year that hopefully we'll be able to put these numbers together in a more timely manner. There's one document that you all saw a lot last year. It is this very large table. This is the 5-1 table, and that comes directly from the Lower St. Croix Comprehensive Watershed Management Plan. And we had modified it, and so our partners were able to report out their successes in our priority areas. The big thing is that this table is very long, it's very cumbersome, and when a lot of our partners are trying to finish their end of year reporting and making sure things get done, this is kind of one of those things that kind of just got shuffled. And so with the 2021 report, when we brought you these tables, it was cumbersome, it was confusing. And then at the beginning of this year, we also had a bit of an administrative switch. So Angie and Emily stepped down. We were able to get Laura on board. Laura, wherever you disappeared to, which we're very glad to have her on board. And she was able to put together this lovely 2022 kind of activities report where we're really able to have a really great snapshot of the progress of what we're being able to do in the partnership, broken out by activity. I was going to make a more fancy handout, but in the end, I was just like, a 7-page report is a solid report, and it's really lined out in a very clear fashion. One of the things that the planning committee took hold of in the last few months was to actually take this table and break it out kind of by partners. So really trying to understand what columns, what actions really applied to specific partners. And so at the beginning of the year, each partner is going to have a much more tailored sheet where they know specifically, like, we know that we are applicable to these rows. We need to make sure that we report out on these types of activities to really try to help make it much simpler so we're able to do the reporting a bit earlier on in the year. Something that's really helpful for Jen and I, because obviously, since our funds are coming from the partnership in doing education and outreach, we want to be able to report out those numbers as quickly as possible because it's also a reflection of how well we're doing our jobs. The other piece of it as well is that Angie in the past has made a Google map associated with some of those projects, and we'd like to beef that up a bit. And so we've been working with the Washington Conservation District. They have a beautiful kind of project management map that they have on their website. And we're working with one of their GIS staff there, the amazing Rebecca, to put together a project map that we'll be able to have on our website. So you can see the types of projects that the partners are doing, where they're happening, what priority areas they're hitting, and the impact that it's having. So all good things as we continue to move forward. But when it comes to the actual numbers, I mean, in the end, I was kind of like, I like this slide, because it shows the portions of WBIF funding that we utilized over this past year. It shows the amount of funding that has come from the partners and the total amount of phosphorus reduced in the priority watersheds in 2022, a little over 1,660 pounds per year of phosphorus. That combined with our 2021 of 1,493, and our 10-year overall phosphorus goal for the Lower St. Croix Watershed Partnership Comprehensive Watershed Management Plan was 5,503. So we're already hitting a 57% goal, and we're not even in year 5 yet, which is kind of awesome and amazing. And I think is more important is this is exciting, and we look good doing it, right? And so we've had, again, like you've heard me say this many, many times over and over, but I absolutely adore working with our partners. They're such dedicated staff. They are literally trying to stretch themselves as much as possible to accommodate as many people who are walking in the door who are interested in trying different conservation actions. I really appreciate the fact that I get to be of a help to them, to help spread the word and really just tell the story of what an amazing job they're doing. So take those accolades back to those staff because they truly do deserve it. But I know that you're going to likely have questions about the report. Laura was the one who really kind of helped put things together, as well as I know that there are several staff online as well who could probably answer more specific questions. But I was just given the happy task of showing that number, which I think is a pretty nice thing to be able to show and say. Yeah.
Is that slide going to be available to each of the partners?
Absolutely. I am planning a bit of a splash press release that kind of coming out about this in the next few weeks.
Can we access that on the website?
We can. This will be uploaded on. Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Pretty cool.
Yeah. I was looking for that, honestly.
Yeah.
That's the best way to tell the story. Not wading through all of this. I mean, this stuff, this report's important, but not to show the importance of the St. Croix, Lower St. Croix, one watershed.
I think it just demonstrates that there's a lot of really great momentum that's being built. And the fact that we're able to do so much with what we have is really, it's quite amazing. And there's still a lot of other really great, I mean, like when you look at that table, we literally, and I was not part of the planning process, but everybody was kind of throwing that in the kitchen sink. And so really just being able to kind of distill it back down to its most basic needs. We want to be able to reduce pollution to the St. Croix River. And we are very strongly moving in that direction.
Barbara, if you have a couple minutes, I'm wondering, are there any projects that really stand out in terms of that?
Oh, there's a couple really great strong ones. Obviously, being able to do the ravine stabilization in South Washington in 2021, that was 250. That was a nice, really big number. I'll actually call out Jen Hahn as well, being able to bring so many of the farmers on board with the non-structural ag program. I'm not quite sure where we are at for capacity in terms of the funding that's left, but the farmers have been calling left and right to be able to kind of try some different management actions out. Jen, do you want to speak to that? Are you available?
Yep. Absolutely. It's been really, really exciting. Thank you, Barbara. Like Barbara was mentioning, the excitement, the momentum. So we've been working with producers in all the counties, and we see the highest reductions, where we have the most sloped areas, generally speaking, because we're reducing erosion and then loading that way. So there are a variety of pollution reduction numbers depending on their specific location. If they're farming really flat areas versus really hilly areas. But at the same time, we're hitting all over within the watershed because we want to maximize our pollution reductions, which we are. We're exceeding them currently, which is great. But the other big part of it is the social side too. If you see a big farmer or other farmers close to your area implementing these practices, the others watch over time and they see that it's working for them, they'll be more likely to implement. But yes, I don't have the documents right in front of me at the moment, but we are exceeding our goals in the egg non-structural BMP side of it, with phosphorus, erosion reductions, TSS, and the nitrate with that new grant. So yeah, producers are excited, and the biggest hindrance is the caps on the contracts. If we had more money, we would have more acres, but this is how we get it started. Yeah.
One more question?
Yeah, go for it.
Did anything get put in place that would also help reduce the effects of climate change?
Well, actually, so that's a great segue into kind of the featured presentation that we're going to be talking about today. And I'm going to allow Jay Michaels a little bit more time to get home, poor guy, to be able to log on. But one of the things we're going to be talking about today is water storage, and that's how that pertains to climate resiliency. Yeah.
Yeah, I just have some questions, continuing on this activities report. The breakdown by category or area where these activity. I think if we could get a slide that shows that breakdown.
Sure.
It would be really, really helpful.
Okay.
I thought in the ag area, I had to remind myself that it was really superior and the amount of phosphorus reduction. And it seems like little projects, a lot of little projects, but there's some big ones in there too. And the total was 682.7 pounds of phosphorus reduction. And I think by far and away that's the highest. So that's important to put on a slide like that, so that we can see where we're getting this huge reduction. And it all goes to the total, of course, usually the lowest including. But I think that would be helpful. And then it might be helpful too to have a partners list that shows the reduction. And even though phosphorus is our primary focus, reducing the sediment load,
Yes.
should be captured. And the third one at the federal level, the big three, is phosphorus, sediment back in number one. The second is phosphorus, but then nitrogen. And with some of our groundwater work, we're finding, especially in aggregates, that's really something that you want to be careful with. So maybe if we track all three of those, I think everybody collects that data.
I believe Jen, I would imagine that you've been tracking that with the projects that you've been involved with, but I would imagine the soil and waters where they've been doing projects are capturing those numbers as well. Correct, right? Not nitrogen? Okay. All right.
Oh, well, we're tracking them for the Clean Water Fund Soil Health Grant. We are reporting on nitrate leaching to groundwater for that specific grant. So for those projects, we are tracking them utilizing University of Minnesota watershed-based data that they came up with that was specific for the Lower St. Croix watershed on the average reductions in nitrate leaching from different practices. So for a set of our funding, we are now tracking nitrate reductions to groundwater.
Cool. Yes.
I know there's some great interplay with NRCS. And is there a way to track that? We did. We report all of our NRCS data that was wrong. So we did. Sorry, I can't speak for the other partners, but we can track that. Because I think that's used to be sometimes a bigger number than you know, we're doing the same thing, but like cover crops, it's Pine County is one. I know there's several.
Yeah.
But the funding for that,
And Laura mentioned too, if you look at the beginning of the report, like this is literally trying to capture the snapshot of our specific partners, being able to figure out ways that we're able to make sure that we're folding in our federal partners and being able to understand their numbers.
And I think it's important to understand that impetus for that might have been this organization.
I have really enjoyed, we have a couple new NRCS folks down in Washington County. Jason Rain, working with him in Pine County has been fantastic. He's been a great impetus. Yeah, I really enjoy working with him.
I agree. I think that's the ultimate goal, to report, aggregate all of this information at one watershed, one plan level, so that we have that type of understanding, not just here, but throughout the state. If we're the first to do it, we also what? And we're the first, but we should do it. And like, do it with
I love it.
There's one thing to point out for the NRCS side, that some of these, they don't. True. Oh, shit. So we're co-located, I'm gonna pull that down from that. One thing. Please support it, that's when we grab it from all right.
maybe those county partners.
Another really cool win, so to speak. So the University of Minnesota hosts Farm Families of the Year. Christy, your family was featured last year for Isanti, correct? The year before, or year before last. Jason May, who Craig's team has been working with in Chisago County very extensively and is taking advantage of our new program, was listed as the Chisago Farm Family of the Year, which was really cool.
Can I just say one other thing about that?
Go for it.
In our county, you know, this is one water. Big river. The bad, for the bad you guys, north, Devil, Snake River. It's hard for this little line to get my mind all the time. We're not also contributing to the lower St. Croix. Because, you know, Snake River goes, St. Croix is east of my house.
Right.
And the kettle goes into St. Croix about 5 miles north of those two watersheds. Way up.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I was actually just at the river landing last night where the snake comes into the St. Croix. It's a beautiful, beautiful area. And yeah, they do contribute. Their success is our success.
Yeah. Absolutely. Any other questions on the 2022? Then I'll turn it over. Angie and I will switch places again. And just keep going. Oh, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, thank you, Barb from Bowser. You can't quite see me online, but I just wanted to say that the activities report was really well done, and I shared it internally with other staff so they can share it with other partnerships. Everybody's reporting in a different way, so I think there's a lot of cross pollination and learning. So I just wanted to give kudos to this group and your staff who are doing this stuff.
Great. I'll take it.
One Barbara to go.
Yeah.
And Laura, thank you.
Yes, Laura.
Well, I hope I hope that 2023 is much even easier to report. I think there's some definite refinements to make, and the suggestions here will be really helpful. So I can picture that little graphic with the 57% being utilized for other key pieces that you're looking at too, like acres of wetland restored or things like that. You know, some of the major milestones in your plan can be reported graphically like that too. So
Let's do it.
okay.
Happy tap.
Okay.
You are such a better notator than I am.
This is why I always get to be the secretary when I'm on boards. Because I can type and talk. Okay, so Barbara was just giving you a snapshot of 2022, and Kristen is the acting chair for the committee. I don't want to step on your toes, but I can just move into what's going on currently. Yeah. Okay. So then moving right along to what is happening currently, and this is Craig's moment to shine. with his masterful spreadsheet that keeps track of all of the numbers. You all would not believe how many little bits and pieces of money and grants and subcontracts and contracts are floating around to have the seemingly effortless grant implementation process. But yeah, Craig keeps track of it all.
So the FY21, let's do a quick rundown. A1, we're on base to spend those funds by November, that's Gen On. A2, that project finance received one project left, that one's done. I talked to Paul before it's finalizing everything what's coming. A3 is Barbara, that's done. A4, we have the non-structural ag left, Chisago and Pine both have some schedules for this summer/fall, will be wrapped up. A5 is the big one, Canadian Marine Sanctuary Washington District has a small project, like I just told us that will be done this quarter, third quarter. South Washington Water District $350,000. From our last planning team meeting, they are on track to have that one wrapped up in the fall, hopefully that's submitted. That would be the only one that we need to do an extension that would come up. A6 and A7 are both wrapped up. A8, Canadian Marine Sanctuary has $20,000 for somewhat analysis. That one's on track to be done this quarter. A9 is done, and A10, all that's left is some funds to still water. So the FY21 grant is well on track to be closed up by this fall. Any questions on the 21 budget? The 23 budget, this one just was approved last November. So we're a little earlier than that one. We do have 72% of the funds already encumbered, which is great. You know, there's some parts of the request coming up for the next month to do that also. Paul, this steering committee looking at the biggest things there. Canadian Marine said Croix has some money on the activity too, which is structural urban practice. Obviously, we've encumbered all of our advanced streets with these funds, actually shifting some more money over to that successful program right now. Comfort Lake did an awesome job in activity 4 with the wetland restoration that was done. And hopefully one of these days we'll be talking about that. We're not quite so warm. A5 and A6 are all encumbered. That's Jen and Barbara. I should say A6 is not all encumbered. We have some funds there for cities for the work coming up here too. A7 activity 7 target engineering thing marine funding. Nobody is requesting internal analysis funding yet. A9 Sidewalks and Steve has some funding to do a subwatershed analysis up in Coast Creek. And A10 the admin funding we've been encumbered for Washington Conservation right now. Also, like I said, 72% of the funds have been encumbered, and that grant is expired until 2025.
You could just refer
I'll
to
just
refer to the budget.
Thank you.
All right. I have a feeling. Oh, that's right. Oh, this is good. I was like, we're going to have to talk much slower to leave Jay Michaels more time to arrive. But I had forgotten that there is time here for Jen to talk a bit about the outreach that she's been doing with farmers, and then Barbara to talk a bit about the outreach she's been doing with everybody else. And yeah, so I'm going to turn it over to you right now, Jen.
Okay. All right, I'll try to be very quick.
No, you
so I
don't need to
split
be quick. Don't be leisurely.
Okay. So I split my update into outreach and technical. So, you know, every month we hold the ag team meetings for the Lower St. Croix Watershed Partnership staff to kind of touch base, talk about what's going on, work together as a group. Also part of the Minnesota Soil Health Action Framework stakeholder cohort. So we're developing a statewide soil health action framework involving all the different partners, all the different players in the state, and how we can craft that and utilize that as a base for everyone. And presented to the Washington Master Gardeners group. And then we turned that recording into a YouTube video. So it's fun. It's for managing soils and vegetable production. They were a wonderful group to present with and talk with. They were funny. It's just too bad in the recording you couldn't hear their jokes and their comments. It was good. It was good. They're a great group. And then also presented at an emerging farmer event that Angie put together for the NECD grant, teaching the emerging farmers how to do a soil test and improve soil functions. And then we gave them binders with handouts of how to do a soil test, how to interpret your results, nutrient management, guidance for vegetables, and then amendments. Sometimes too much of a good thing is not a good thing, especially when we're talking about compost. So some of the different things that they deal with in those management systems. Barbara and I presented at the MESWCD Area 4 meeting. It was lovely. We got to be on a boat and we had great weather. Shocking, it wasn't raining this summer while we had that event. I was hoping we would cause it to rain by being on a boat, but that didn't work. Speak monthly on the WCMP radio 100.9 in Pine City. And Heather Donahoe, she's the new Pine Soil and Water conservation planner. She actually had the opportunity to speak at the radio this last month while I was out on leave. So that's really exciting. We're going to get the partners in there to share information too. Creating videos, getting a lot of videos out in the field. Then you have to bring them back in and work the magic on them. So we're getting more videos put on YouTube. Working with Barbara on social media. Yay, you gotta love social media, but we'll we'll use it because
we are the only partnership or one watershed, one plan that's on social media, by the way, just FYI.
so
Lower St. Croix Watershed Partnership on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. There you go.
That's right. Some of it's funny, some of it's, educational, some of it's for events. It's a great mix of things posted on there. And I do see I know notably one person on the policy committee is very good at following us and liking us. So thank you, Dan. Appreciate it. Yeah, gotta give a shout out to one of our biggest fans. So thank you. And working with partners, we're putting on 4 egg field days this summer. There's going to be 2 in Pine. One is farmer led, and it's just right on the border, Pine and Chisago County. We have another one in Isanti County and then Washington County. We were really hoping to have one in southern Washington, southern Chisago, northern Washington County. But with the drought, we didn't do any interseeding with cover crops, and so it changed plans, and so we rolled with it, and we'll find we have other areas to go look at and share successes. And then Barbara, Mary Jo, and I, Mary Jo from the Chisago Soil and Water, have been working together, and Barbara's been spearheading the Event in the Prairie series. So it's an evening walk in the prairie 3 different times of the year. So we had one early May, we had one July 11th, and then we'll have another one coming up in September. So you can see it at different times of the year. We walk it, ask questions. And Mary Jo Youngbauer, it's on her property that she restored. But she's also a conservation planner. So you get to see, both sides of the coin, which is really, really helpful for talking about troubleshooting, management, things like that. So yeah, some of the pictures from the fun that we've been having. So that's a quick overview of the outreach, and then technical assistance. We did cover crop field surveys on 22 sites. We did this in conjunction. We always want to get baseline data, and that's something that usually is thought of far after the fact. Shoot, I wish we would have figured out where we were when we started. So one of the opportunities for collecting baseline data was doing this cover crop field survey and also providing the data to MOSH, the Minnesota Office for Soil Health. For them, what it does, we take the pictures, we submit all the information, planting date, planting rate, species, date it was planted, and it helps them ground truth their satellite data. So then when they are taking the satellite data saying, oh, this amount of acres of cover crops in the state, this county, the watershed, we're helping improve that data, but we're also collecting the data for ourselves so that we have all the specifics, planting date, rate, species, things like that, plus the locations to see how that works in our watershed, in our specific areas. And then we will compile that data and make it into something really exciting on the web later on too. That was a lot of fun. It's really nice, you know, you get the permission from the producers, but they don't always talk to the landowners. So when I was out taking pictures in fields, I did get yelled at. But after conversation, everything was fine. But you know, that's just how it is when you go in the field. Um, the University of Minnesota Extension has a project, 100 farms testing. So they were testing on 100 farms across the state. We had 5 within our watershed, and these are vegetable production farms systems. And so I went out on 5 sites. There's Angela in the picture. She came out with me on some of them. We would test in their field and then in their high tunnel. And we're just getting that data now. So it was a good opportunity to be able to connect and work with some new producers that we haven't worked with before. Plus, we're getting the data. Because when you're growing foods and items in high tunnels, your pH actually increases because you're generally using well water. You're not getting the acidifying effect from the rain. So it's different management. Not everybody's aware of it. So it's really interesting. We'll have that data so we can better work with our vegetable production farmers as well. Doing site visits for practice certifications on just shy of 3,000 acres. So I have it broken down. Conservation cover, so that's putting the land into a mix of perennial covers. This one, it was natives. We did just short of 150 acres with 4 producers for converting cropland into this year's hayland. We didn't have any pastures, all hay. We did conservation tillage on 1,000 acres with 3 producers, no-till, strip-till certified, about 1,600 acres, spread across 14 producers. And again, with those, they would have signed up more. It was just, you know, the amount of cost share that we had available, that was a limitation. And then also spring was a really good time to go out for new site visits for new projects, communications, recommendations, designs, and collaborations. And with the certifications and site visits, we utilize that opportunity to provide training to staff to help them increase their job approval authority, which is the JAA. So you might as well hit multiple birds with one stone if possible. And then reviewing certified projects, project documentation to make sure everything's lined up. We're getting people what they need to have to be able to report it. Updating and maintaining a project spreadsheet for all the non-structural practices, whether they are funded through WBIF or Clean Water Fund Soil Health Grant or watershed districts or other local or federal programs, so that we can bring that reporting to you and say, this is what we're doing, and track it in real time. And then let's see. Oh, participated in Washington County's local work group meeting, which is a really fantastic opportunity. Really happy that they invited me to come participate in that. That's when the Soil and Water NRCS gets together. They invite other stakeholders in the county to review what are the resource concerns in the county, what practices should they be funding and giving a higher priority. And then any other feedback to provide the conservation offices. So that was really nice to be able to be involved in that. And then providing partner staff technical support. So it's fantastic. You know, last year it was a big crazy push to get all these things out, and it's been really exciting to see all the partner staff coming along for that ride, but now switching to them really feeling more confident with all of this and getting out there and doing this and being the ones out there in conjunction with myself as well. But it's really exciting to see them flourish. But yes, try not to overwhelm them with work as well. But it's been really exciting. They're really coming to the table and participating, so it's exciting. And I think that's all I have for this section.
Awesome. Thank you. Oh, except that you also have a soil health grant. You probably
That's
don't.
right.
You've probably talked about most of these things, but maybe just to mention to the group that there is 2 separate chunks of funds that Jen is working with when she's meeting with the farmers and being able to offer them funding.
Yes, so
you were able to get that money, so.
Yes, yep. The Chisago Soil and Water was awarded a Clean Water Fund Soil Health Grant. It was focusing on reducing nitrates into drinking water using soil health practices. So it was one of the first of its kind, very tricky, but they were awarded the grant. And because we got that additional 200,000, we were able to funnel that for the non-structural ag projects and reallocate the activity for funding for other projects. So that's nice. We were able to make our funds go farther. And with that, we have about 26,000 left to encumber. But we've already exceeded our nitrate reductions by 14,000 pounds. So everything else is just, icing on the cake, the fancy flowers that they put on there, because we've already exceeded our reductions. And that's mainly we implemented 1,147 acres of no-till and strip-till this spring with triple that plan because they're 3-year contracts. So this was their first year of implementing. So they will implement for 2 more years with that. Cover crops, we have just short of 400 acres planned, and they will start being planted this fall. Those are 3-year contracts as well. Pasture and hayland planting, we converted almost 130 acres just this year from cropland into hayland with this program. And then converting cropland to perennials, we have 20 acres implemented and a few more to come. So it's really exciting how this program, we were able to augment and utilize this to tie on. It did force us to start tracking another nutrient, another pollutant, which is nitrate, but which there isn't a lot of good data out there, but we were able to find something that was, completed by the university, so people can hang their hat on it. But it's really exciting, and it opens the door for us to be looking at nitrate in groundwater for the future too.
This is me.
This is Barbara.
Any questions on what Jen was talking about before we leave her?
No, nice presentation.
Is that coming up?
So the farmers event in Isanti, Jen, they have not specifically set a date for that yet, correct?
Correct. We've got 2 potential dates, waiting to hear back from the presenters. Yep.
But we will
Commissioner
advertise
Creasel,
that.
come on in. You can come on and have a seat at the table. Oh, right. Well, I didn't even know to expect you. So for you can introduce yourself, but for people who don't know, Gary Creasel is another one of the Washington County Commissioners who has not come to this group meeting before, but is coming in place of Fran today. Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah, as you might know, Commissioner Miron had open heart surgery, so.
I hadn't even had a chance to tell people that was why he was out, but yeah. Have you gotten an update from him yet? Okay, good. Wonderful. Well, before you got here, we had done intros. We did a 2022 activity report, and we were just getting updates on how the ag outreach has been going for the year. And then Barbara was going to give us an update on how other education was doing, and then we stalled successfully enough that Jay Michaels is at home and I saw his face. He's sitting there. So when it gets to his presentation, he will be able to go.
Any other questions? Yeah.
Madam Chair members, I just had a question on since there will be a lot more soil health money being available, I don't know if there are certain areas of the watershed where it's just really hot and popular, or it's spreading, or there's certain areas that it's more popular than others. I don't know if you want to answer that.
That's a really good question. Yes, namely in southern Washington County, that's where we have really high interest. They generally have pretty rolling landscapes, and so they are able to see the benefits, right away with soil erosion reduction using the soil health practices. So they have been really excited about it. Plus, a lot of them were part of a cohort with MDA, the Washington Conservation District, with nitrates in drinking water. And so over the years, they have worked together as a group. So they have networked before. And some of the other areas where we're getting interest popping up, like in Chisago County, we do have a local farmer group there. And so that does seem to help. Where you have producers getting together and talking with one another and sharing, that's where we really see the momentum increase. And so that's why we want to focus on, for instance, Iceni County, they are working on forming their own local farmer group, because that's where we see the most successful implementation, even across the state. But it also depends on outreach efforts, what kind of a presence there is. So some areas are building more than others, and then like what was noted before, paying attention to where we are getting implementation and not getting implementation. That's where we're going to start focusing in and attacking or going after those areas that have the lower implementation rates.
All right, well, I'll launch into, oh, yeah, go for it, yeah.
I'm sure every area has this, but we have some huge farms that are not from the area. And they have come in and they have no real tie to that area. Farm 600, 800 acres. And put their crops in and leave, and you see their spray trucks over vehicles over the road. If you never see them, is that a concern?
I know that is an ongoing concern with a lot of the swollen waters, but Jen, I will pitch that one to you.
Yep, there's been conversations of setting up. We want to be very careful how we do things, but also reaching out to landowners to let them know, providing them education about soil management, and about these different programs and practices. But we just want to make sure that we do it in a way that we're not trying to make it seem like we're coming in between them and their renter, because then we will be disliked by many people. And so it's a very delicate balance of providing that education in a way that, hey, we're all learning together. Here are some new things to think about and to consider. And I know particularly in Pine County, we do have a very robust landowner mailing list. So we have been utilizing that for our events and our programs. So we're starting to get that out, and to dance that dance very delicately. But yes, if land renting land, the management on that is completely different than owned land. And if you do have a large producer that isn't really in this area from this area, but they operate a lot of that land, that is going to be one of the hardest takes to frost. And talking with a lot of the big producers, some of their biggest setbacks are the amount of kosher that's available to them. If they farm 1,000+ acres, or even just shy of 1,000 acres, for them to make a tillage change, that's a lot of money, especially right now for equipment. Depending on what kind of equipment they currently have, it might not be that expensive to make a change. But depending on their current system, what they want to go toward, it could be very expensive. And so reducing, or I should say increasing the caps, or having more money available per producer so that they can justify changing their equipment, updating it, getting different equipment. If they get a $4,000 payment, that's great. But in the scheme of things, it's really not that much. It helps mitigate their risk, but it's really not substantial enough for equipment. So especially to get the larger farmers, it would be great to be able to offer more funds, but then you also have to look at, how you want to have that spread out with different people as well. So gets a little tricky. We've been leaving that up to the local offices to set the caps on those.
I have a question. Mention something about stakeholders.
When you mentioned stakeholders.
Jen, who are you including among the stakeholders?
I'm sorry, totally missed the question. Is that the stakeholder framework? Or
I don't know, you mentioned something about stakeholders.
Was that maybe for the Southern Washington County Work Group? That might have been when you were talking about it.
So with that, it was Minnesota Department of Ag, Washington Conservation District. They were holding, is it quarterly meetings in the past, I believe, to bring the farmers in. They were going to be one of the watersheds in the state that was going to have regulation for application of fertilizers and things like that. But they ended up being not as polluted as some of the others, and so it's a voluntary basis. So they were interacting together with that. If it's the Minnesota Soil Health Action Framework cohort that you're talking about, that's that statewide group that's creating a framework plan for all the different organizations. I mean, it's Bowser, MDA, Extension. We've got corn growers, soybean growers, cattlemen's, NRCS, SFA. Boy, we've got a DNR. Not everybody shows up though, but with that group, it's a lot. So it's been taking us a really long time because there's so many different perspectives, because there are so many organizations in Minnesota that deal with soil health. But I'm really happy that they're including the ag industry groups as well. So it's not just, conservation focused people on it. So it's been really exciting. I hope that answers your question.
Okay. What is Rusty Toasty in here?
I just have when you talked about a robust mailing list, or contact list in Pine County, how robust can it be? But it's only 5% of the county. And in our watershed, the one watershed, one plan. So I just want to make sure that we're focusing on the district boundaries, the watershed district boundaries, and not going beyond that, because all this great work, it's not a criticism of what you're doing. It's not at all. It's great work. But we want to make sure that it's focused on our county bound, excuse me, our watershed district bound.
Yes, yep. We're making sure that it stays within the Lower St. Croix watershed boundaries for those contact lists. Yes.
Yeah.
Great question.
Well, when we get to the last item, I got some things that, questions and maybe some things that we should be thinking about in the future, that fit into this conversation. Okay. I just have a comment for Jen. I'm aware that there's a conference every year for people who own land that somebody else is farming, because I have a good friend that attended that. And maybe you're aware of that too, but I could get more information.
It is that I'm sorry. I'm having a little bit of a hard time hearing everybody talk. Is that with LSP, the Land Stewardship Program?
I'm not sure, but that doesn't sound right to me. Like, I'll check it to find out who.
It's a conference for people, she said, who own land, but somebody else is renting it to farm it.
Yeah.
An annual.
Oh, sure. And the Isaac Walton League of Minnesota is also spearheading some of those meetings as well. Yes, so working with those groups to get them in, but we just want to make sure our messaging is on point.
Right.
But did you feel like they were trying to pit you against your renter, or was it really nicely handled?
No, she was just saying that she could find out the contact information to connect us.
Oh, okay.
I have a good friend who did that for quite a while when she and her siblings were going some fun. I'll look into the name in case it's something you don't know about. Hey, Greg.
Oh, perfect. Thanks.
You bet.
All right.
All right.
Barbara, do you want to quickly update on other stuff before we
yes.
move into?
So kind of speaking to a couple of the other target audiences that we are doing outreach for, we have a lot of lake lovers in the Lower St. Croix watershed. So there's been a lot of activity associated with that. In April and May, Angie and I put on a couple webinars. I know Comfort Lake Forest, Lake Watershed District has another shoreline workshop coming up next week or this week. We were able to partner with the Center Lakes Association. They have a really smashing just board that really likes being able to put on events that promote overall lake health. And they helped us organize this Navigate to a Cleaner Lake event that we had at the Uncommon Loon Brewery in the middle of May. And what was really nice was just being able to get together a lot of partners, right? So we had Chisago County there, the LID was there, the partnership was there. We had our Cornelia Marine St. Croix Watershed District had a table there. We had Minnesota Lakes and River advocates come. We had native plant vendors. We had a couple landscape architects there as well. Really just trying to help bring the message of, if you're interested in a project, you're not really quite sure where to start, or you're trying to really figure out why we're asking you to do this. This is just a really great casual way to be able to network with people. It had a good turnout. CLA was really excited about it, and so they want to do it again next year. And so they're already starting to come up with ways to improve. There's been a lot of buzz about vanishing shorelines. There have been some state reports that have been talking about just how much Minnesota has lost almost half of its natural shorelines, and the impact that it's having on water quality and overall aquatic health in our lakes. And so at our workshops on the water, which if you haven't had the opportunity to come to yet, tomorrow night, you can still come. You can still sign up. We would love to have you there. So it's our boat workshop out of Stillwater. And what's great is that we've been able to partner with a couple, we say the Lower St. Croix watershed, that includes Wisconsin as well. And so we actually have some Wisconsin inclusion. And so we have a Wisconsin DNR, Minnesota DNR, and they've been putting together these sessions. And what's really nice is how much they actually amplify each other in the fact that, yes, kind of local governments are set up quite differently on either side of the river, but we're still kind of seeing the same things and still have the same wanting to be able to amplify the same sort of messaging of what we want people to think about when they're thinking about their shorelines. Buffer neighborhood show and tell events. So I was trying to have 3 of these this summer. I had 2 interested landowners. One finally got back to me today. So we're actually scheduling that for August 15th. But this is, again, there have been a lot of lawns and lagoons programs going on out there. A lot of the partners have been very busy helping and store these buffers along shorelines. And people are asking about them. They're really interested in being able to see those pops of color. They're able to see that they're able to hold the shore in place versus just your generic riprap. And so we just want to allow people the opportunity, and we have these great neighbors who are able to say, yeah, come on by, we'll have some pizza there, some refreshments. The gal I talked to today, she's like, what if we brought in local music? I'm like, oh, you're speaking my language now. Yeah. But just being able to allow people the opportunity to come and ask questions. And what's great about this one particular landowner that we're going to be working with, Tara Iyer, so their project has been in place for 4 years. So they've gone through the entire, like those first couple of years where it required more maintenance, more reading. But then as it's really blossomed and grown and they've fallen in love with it, their neighbor got excited. And so their neighbor actually installed a project last season. And so when we go to the neighborhood event, you'll be able to see the before and the after. So just kind of really fun and compelling.
That's really cool. Are you doing any of that work in St. Croix? Because as you know,
I'm sure that Mike, I'm sure that Mike would love it if we were going to be able to do that. So if you have a particular
there was a landowner on Big Carnelian that I was going back and forth with several times trying to get something set up, and I'll need to reach out to her.
But I have some.
It always seems to go this way, that you have several months worth of time that you go back and forth with somebody before you finally get them to commit.
Yes, and I'm just trying to get them to commit enough so I have time to promote it, right? And so we're hoping to get those on the calendar, but I do have budget for those. I hold monthly conversations with Minnesota Lakes and River Advocates folks to the point that they're really excited about what we're doing in our corner of the world. So they want to bring their annual meeting to our area next May, and so we're hoping to host it out of Stillwater in late April. I'm actually helping price out some venues for them just because we know the area a bit better, which is really fun. And then there's been a lot of great kind of dynamics between a few of the lake associations. Several lake associations are struggling to fill some board positions and kind of really engage interest. And a few years ago, I know Angie led an effort to try to put together kind of like a little lake association mini conference. We're interested in potentially trying to do that again. And so essentially being able to bring these organizations together to talk about what's working, what's not working, membership drives, talking about lakeshore health, talking about weeding, management. And so just kind of starting to bring these folks together and see if we can have a spot at the table and really being able to promote healthy shorelines and stewardship practices. Local leader outreach. And so we've had a couple opportunities for folks to attend the smart salting for local leaders. So just a great way of being able to build up local education for city council members, commission members and such to learn about why chloride is an issue. It is an issue everywhere, not just necessarily in more developed areas. And the one that was in June, I thought was interesting. We actually had several folks from the Lower St. Croix attend, so that was actually really nice. Workshops on the water, we had roughly 100 attendees in Taylor's Falls. I think we're now close to 85, 90 for tomorrow, so that's really exciting. And then I'll get into a little bit more talking about the work that I'm doing with Jay Michaels and Mike Eisenseed in trying to assess interest in adopting these minimal impact design standards, these stormwater ordinances that we're going to talk more about. And then other things, obviously our street sweeping education and outreach, that's ramping up this fall. I'm really excited to be able to tell some of the stories of these communities that have adopted these programs and how it kind of shakes out in the first season of implementation. We've had the Evening in the Prairie Walking Tour series that Jen talked about. Mary Jo has just been fantastic at that. There's Managing Woodlands for Resiliency. We're working with ISANTI to do a small lakes webinar in late September. We have set well testing clinics with the Minnesota Groundwater Association and the Minnesota Well Owners Association. So both of them. Yep. And so being able to do well testing and screening events in both Cottage Grove and in North Branch. And one of the parameters there is nitrate that's going to be tested for. And then Angie and I were able to score 2 climate resiliency interns that are working with AmeriCorps, and they're going to be able to help us with some of these education initiatives. One of them being homeowners association outreach. A lot of homeowners associations have stormwater infrastructure associated with them. How to take care of them, how to maintain them, how to plan for costs associated with them is something that is very much needed. And so we are going to be starting to do that research and work with this resiliency intern. And they're also just going to help us out so we're able to attend more community events, have our presence in other events. So that's
just kind of
now we have to move along.
I know we do need to move along, so I will just kind of try to quickly highlight that there are large projects that are underway as well that are not education and outreach. When we have our October meeting, you will get to learn about both the Trout Brook Stream Restoration Project and the Sunrise River Wetland Restoration Project, which are our two big projects that are taking up a large portion of our FY21 and FY23 funding. So you get to hear all about those because they should both be completed or nearly completed this fall. Urban projects currently underway. There will be a big marine boat launch sediment plume reduction project and some bioretention basins going in the Carnelian Marine St. Croix watershed. And then at our last policy committee meeting, we had an in-depth presentation about street sweeping and how it is such a cost-effective strategy for reducing sediment and phosphorus in urban developed areas. So we are moving forward with implementing we had 16 communities that got grant funds to develop targeted enhanced street sweeping plans. And now we are using the FY23 funds to help Linwood Township, Wyoming, North Branch, Afton, and then 8 communities in the Middle St. Croix WMO to actually implement those plans. So they are getting cost share grant funds to implement those plans that we help them develop. And then there are just a number of these targeting and prioritization analyses underway to be able to figure out where we should best apply our grant funds in the future and where project work is needed to improve the priority lakes and rivers. So the newest one to be approved was a sub-watershed analysis for Goose Lake. That was a Chisago one. Rock Lake Swy is underway. Sunrise River Priority Drainage Areas, that's underway. Northeastern Washington County is underway. And then you can see there are a couple other ones that have already been completed. So lots of work up front in the plan implementation is just going towards developing the protocols and figuring out the prioritized best locations to do the work. And then we'll be chugging away getting the work done. The steering committee already knows about this. All of your staff members for each of your organizations already knows this, but the deadline to submit project requests for projects that are less than $50,000 is August 9th. We're kind of having a new thing now, rather than reviewing projects on a monthly basis, we're reviewing them 3 times a year. So this is the next upcoming deadline for people to apply for funds for these categories. So this is where I get to turn it over now to Jay Michaels, who has jumped in his car, driven home, set up his computer. And Jay, are you there? Because I'm pretty sure I saw you a moment ago.
I am.
All right, there he is.
Can you see me now?
Yes. And now here he is. And I think I need to also probably give you, screen sharing privileges also. So that's the one last remaining thing I'll need to do. Here we go. Make co-host. Yes. Okay. For a second, I thought you were frozen, Jay, but you were just pausing, waiting for me to make you a co-host. Okay.
Do you need to stop sharing your screen?
I don't know if I do or not. Do I? Maybe. We could find out if that will change things any. Nope. I didn't need to.
There we go.
Jay was able to just take it away.
All right, you guys seeing a raindrop?
Yes, we do see a raindrop.
Yeah, oh, well, that's good.
Yep, it's working, Jay.
Well, hallelujah. That's about the first thing that's been working all day for me. So, Barbara, do you want to lead in on this?
So
Or do you want me to just run with it?
I would say the reason we're talking about stormwater ordinances. And so one of the things in the Lower St. Croix Comprehensive Management Plan is talking about the fact that we have a changing climate. We need to be able to figure out ways to better store water on the landscape. And we could do that through a variety of mechanisms, improving soil health, which obviously has been recognized as a very high priority, and Jen is absolutely killing it on. Restoring and recreating wetlands, buffers, but infiltrating stormwater runoff, particularly in regards to as our communities continue to develop, because with development comes impervious services and more runoff. And so a lot of what Jay's going to be talking about today is the strategies that we can use to make sure that stormwater management is at the forefront of our mind versus a bit of an afterthought as we go through the development process. So is that enough, Jay?
That's beautiful. Thanks, Barbara.
Go for it.
And I am really bummed out because there are a lot of my old friends that are sitting in that room that I was hoping to catch up with this afternoon. But as we loaded up my my presentation on my favorite flash drive that I've been using for 10 years, suddenly we got nothing but gibberish. And happily, the Minnesota Highway Patrol let me pass without pulling me over at 85 miles an hour on the way back down to Stillwater to get back here and fire it up on my computer. So, and I know many of you have been listening to me for a couple of decades preach the stormwater gospel according to Jay of low impact development and putting the raindrop back down in the ground. So a lot of this will be just a refresher course. But you know, this is kind of the story of the raindrop and the adventure that it takes between you know, falling and then the road that it takes to getting into our receiving waters. Back in 1973, Wendell Anderson made the cover of Time magazine with The Good Life in Minnesota. And you know, a big part of our good life in Minnesota is this guy out fishing for that walleye who you know spends $13 billion. You think he's not going to talk to somebody at the bar tonight, tell him what a beautiful fish he caught, and it creates 250,000 jobs. And you know, this is a big part about who we are is the 7 months of summer that we get where water drives what we do. We're the land of 10,000 lakes, actually 11,642, but you know, all is not well.
Now he's froze? He
No.
really is froze? Oh, come on. Oh, Jay.
You still got
Right while she's looking. Right while she's looking at the blue-green algae and everything.
I know, it has me that photos.
Thumb drive?
Oh,
And 50% soaks back down into the ground. But when we shift that, when we add the hands of man to the equation, all of a sudden the equation just completely flip-flops. What used to go down into the ground is now running off. And this leads to a number of issues, and it's all driven by this thing we call impervious surfaces.
No.
Sidewalks, even the little green areas along the boulevards are so compacted by the time we build them that it'll take decades, if ever, that soil is going to loosen up. So even our green spaces, you know, where we strip the topsoil off and come in with sprinkler systems and plant sod, you know, that's got a root depth of about an inch at best. A good friend of mine, Tom Schuler, who, if you went to the mountaintop to talk to the guru of stormwater, I would bet that it would be Tom Schuler sitting there. One of his first studies, Tom started the Center for Watershed Protection back in the early 1990s. And back when one of his first studies was in 1992, where he discovered that when you get above about 10% of impervious surface within the watershed, you're going to start to have an impact. And when you get above 30% or 25%, you're going to start degrading the watershed. This has been confirmed by dozens of studies after Tom did this in 1992. So, our equation shifting is what used to go into the ground is now running off. And this leads to a disruption of the natural water balance. Our floods are higher, they last longer. Because of that, we get more stream bank erosion and habitat loss. And then the water getting into the ground is what keeps our streams alive during August and September, our dry months of the year. And that's called base flow. That's what keeps that stream gurgling during those periods. Well, it doesn't get there anymore. And so we have lower or no summer base flow. Another factor, of course, is the changing weather patterns. A few years ago, we updated the 2, 10, 100-year, 50-year, 100-year storm events that we've been using since the 1960s. And in that update called Atlas 14, we discovered that our 50-year event is 21% higher than we were anticipating. And our 100-year event is 25% higher than we were anticipating. So automatically, as you increase the water quantity, you're going to decrease the water quality. And with that come the pollutants of concern. The nutrients, the pathogens, sediment, the brake linings, the toxins, the litter and debris, and the warmed water, even in our stormwater ponds that are supposed to help us out, creates thermal stress on our cold water fisheries. It's kind of hard to believe that what we do up here at the top of the St. Croix River is going to have any effect on anybody else, but what we run off here in the St. Croix watershed winds up making its way down the Mississippi and into the Gulf of Mexico. And any given year, it can be between 5,000 and 9,000 square miles of the hypoxic zone where nothing lives, because this is where the toilet flushes and there's no oxygen to allow things to breathe. So more and more, we've got the pollutants of concern that we've been worried about, but now all of a sudden we've started to realize that the driving force of this is not only the pollutants, but the volume that we're flushing off. And so if we can work to reduce the volume, then we can also work to reduce the pollutants. So how much water do we really talk about in this? And this is pretty interesting. Jay Riggs put this together way back when, and I've used this slide forever. When an engineer looks at designing a project, he has to design it to make sure that post-development is going to be equal to or less than pre-development as far as runoff is concerned. And he uses a program called, or she uses a program called TR55. And basically TR55 is based in what the land use is. So if you've got a meadow in good condition, your curve number is probably somewhere around 35, 36, 38. If you're 100% impervious parking lot, your curve number is 100. So when we take a look at this, we take this specific project was a 25-acre development that was down in Rosemont, sandy soils. It was a row crop field and a little bit of woods up in one corner. So we ran the curve number on that, and the way it sits right the day that we started this, it has a curve number of 62. which is pretty typical for row crops. So what that means is that when you look at the peaks here, and this is rainfall from 2002, that we had 9 storm events that created runoff. And on that field, as it sat there that day, it took about 1.2 inches to create that runoff, 1.2 inches of rain. So then we come in and we're going to change this to residential development. And suddenly our curve number goes up to 79. And you'll notice that now all of a sudden we've got 29 rainfall events that created runoff, and it goes from 1.2 inches down to about a ½ inch. That's why a lot of our standards are based on somewhere around the ½ inch rainfall event. And then a lot of times we don't take into consideration compaction. But if you throw compaction after the scrapers and the cats and the lulls and everything has created that residential development, now the curve number goes up to 86. And our rainfall events are close to 40 that were generating runoff. And it's down to 0.3 of an inch of rainfall before it starts running off. In the end, on this 25-acre site, that's 12 million gallons a year of water that used to soak into the ground that is now running off. And none of it is reduced by using stormwater ponds. A fraction of it is reduced, a fraction of the phosphorus is reduced through that pond, but we have this soluble phosphorus issue that doesn't drop out in a pond. The pond program was based in a study called the National Urban Runoff Program. So back in 1993, we took a look at what can we do to solve this issue, and we compiled a bunch of technical studies that took a look at it, and it resulted in a proliferation of stormwater ponds. Now, if you think back to 1983, the Canadian goose was almost extinct. The Canadian goose is far from extinct today because we've created a perfect breeding ground for them without any predators. And then what about the areas that were built before the early 80s, before 85, 86? I mean, in Minnesota, our world of stormwater ponds came in around 1990. So anything that was built prior to that is running right off the roof, down the sidewalk, down the driveway, into the curb and gutter, where it gets collected in a catch basin, run down, centralized, and then off into our receiving waters. Back a few years ago, the National Academy of Sciences took a look at this, and they discovered that past practices have been ineffective at best in protecting water quality in our receiving waters, and they really aren't doing all that well on flood control either. And their recommendations were to take a look at how Mother Nature does this, where we harvest the stormwater runoff, we infiltrate it, we allow the plants to evapotranspirate it. These are the ways of the future of stormwater management. So we've gone from putting it into a pipe and putting it into a pond to infiltration and filtration. And we've also changed our focus from flood control to these smaller rainfall events. The rainfall events between a ½ inch and 1.5 inches are responsible for what we call the first flush, which is about 75% of the pollutant discharge that's just sitting there in a parking lot waiting for the afternoon thunderstorm like we had in Stillwater this afternoon to get flushed off into the St. Croix River. We have a lot of federal and state programs that drive these. The two big ones are the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, which is the NPDES program, and that the one we know most is the construction stormwater program, where anything over 1 acre requires a stormwater management plan, a stormwater pollution prevention plan, or SWIP, and also includes the stormwater management in the way of ponds and infiltration. And back in the late 1990s, we actually opened it up for this thing called low impact development, leading the country, by the way, at that point. The one that most of our municipalities deal with is called the MS4 program. And our larger municipalities are put into the MS4 program. The Municipal Separate Storm Sewer Program is what MS4 stands for. And each one of those communities need to provide programs to address these 6 minimum control measures, including post-construction stormwater runoff. The other driving force is the total maximum daily load program. And when I showed you the impaired waters list a little while ago, this is how all that works. The impaired waters list is driven by the Clean Water Act, which says that states need to establish a threshold for water quality within the state, and then go and study it and see that your waters are meeting the water quality standard that's set. And those water bodies that aren't 6,186 right now in the state of Minnesota, those surface water bodies that aren't meeting that standard, they need to figure out where are the pollutants coming from. I compare this to my annual physical with my doctor, where she says, "Hey Jay, you could drop 20 pounds." And well, where am I going to drop 20 pounds? Well, maybe reducing the Oreos and milk at night is a good start, or trying to figure out where this weight gain is coming from, and then eliminating it from the diet. That's the same as a TMDL study. So we go in, we take a look at the watershed, which is the driving force on our goals for the St. Croix River, and the development of a plan to put it in place. So how do we get there? Well, it all starts with the question of how do you make that urban picture up on the left, that left corner, function like a forest? And what you do is you go back to the way Mother Nature does it. You retain and restore the natural landscape. And over the decades that I've been preaching the gospel according to Jay of low impact development, this has become termed green infrastructure, LID. Basically, it changes the focus from hooking up all the pipes and running them to a pond to try to find solutions within each development, within each project, to really create a hydrologically functional landscape in the end. That is the primary goal of LID. It starts by taking a look at your project and seeing where are our soils, where we can get water back down into the ground. Where do we have sandy soils? What do we need to protect in the way of wetlands and woodlands? And how can we protect these natural drainage patterns? How do we design the project around the features that we want to protect? How do we minimize the development impacts? How do we reduce street size? And how do we keep our soils healthy? And how do we treat stormwater as close as to where that raindrop falls as we can in the pattern of development? A lot of this is based in planning, where we look at these natural flow patterns in the sensitive areas and reducing impervious surfaces and disconnecting the impervious surfaces. But then our toolbox is unique in that and growing all the time in the world of bioretention and vegetated swales and green roofs and all these different tools that we have in the toolbox that we can use to create a functional, sustainable landscape. The backbone of this is bioretention, or rain gardens, the simple rain garden. In a sandy soil, we dig a little rain garden, and the stormwater comes in, or the rainfall comes in, it fills up the low area and then soaks down into the ground. That's in sand, that's perfect. The plants use it for evapotranspiration, and away we go. If we have heavier soils, we can actually, it becomes more of a filtration sort of process, as opposed to infiltration, where we're filtering it through the soil media, which is usually about 30 inches of sand, compost, and a number of different soil media types that are out there that we're still working with. And then, the plants still use it up as evapotranspiration. Even when we have karst areas, we can come in and or polluted areas, we can come in and we can actually line the bottom of the bioretention cell. And we're still getting this is where it becomes more of just filtration and evapotranspiration, where it comes in, goes through the soil media, into the perforated pipes in the underdrain, and the plants use it up through evapotranspiration. That's the backbone of everything that we do. There are a lot of other tools that we'll talk about here, but more and more we're seeing how the open systems are easier to work with than the closed systems. And vegetation there are a lot of benefits to vegetation versus piping, and the world of infiltration versus detention. This isn't our first rodeo. We started doing this back in the early 1990s, and one of the first projects on the Twin Cities metro area was the H.B. Fuller Company parking lot. And it's still there today. I just went through it a couple of weeks ago when I was over in the neighborhood, and it's still looking good. And we built that back in about 1995, and it was one of the first projects that we built, and the Ramsey Washington Metro Watershed District did a lot of monitoring on it. And they found that we could reduce stormwater discharge by 73%, the sediment coming off the site by 94%, and phosphorus loading by 70%. A stormwater pond on its best day is designed to reduce sediment by 80%. And does nothing to reduce stormwater discharge. So more and more, we're taking advantage of the world of engineered swales, running infiltration areas in new development backyard, infiltration basins that it can also be used as playgrounds and sports fields that we can get dual uses out of. Soil amendments, the adding of compost and deep tilling and decompaction, using native ground covers, the world of native plants. The state of Minnesota and the St. Croix watershed are at the cutting edge of the use of native ground cover. Simple steps of using buffers to protect our wetlands and our receiving waters. We got a lot of tools that we can put underground as well with constructed filter systems. One of the biggest ones we got working right now is the iron enhanced sand filter. At the St. Anthony Falls Laboratory a few years back, Andy Erickson discovered that if we added 5% of pure iron filings to a sand filter, that we could reduce phosphorus, the total package phosphorus, by almost 95%. And over the course of time, we don't know how it's going to play out over the course of 35 years yet. But the projects that we've done in the Browns Creek Watershed District and across the area that we've got extensive monitoring on are still showing significant reductions in total phosphorus by the use of the iron sand filter. How this works is that the water comes into the basin. It moves down through the sand and iron filings, and as the iron filings rust, that extracts the phosphorus out of it into an underdrain and out through the drainage system. Pervious pavements. We're using more and more of these. Urban forestry, stormwater tree trenches. This is something that I'm even seeing in communities that I wouldn't have expected to be seeing this. This one is in Vancouver, and it was built during the Olympics out there, and it's been in the ground for over 20 years and has been doing a fantastic job. It takes the runoff coming off of the sidewalk, it puts it down, and it's just like a bioretention cell for a tree. As the runoff comes in, the lower area fills up, As we get more rain, it overflows into the system, and the tree gets watered every time it rains. This is a tool that we used on the light rail project way back when on University Avenue. 6 miles of tree trenches. Green roofs, blue roofs. It's a whole new toolbox. You know, I mentioned that this isn't our first rodeo. One of the earliest projects that we did was down in Burnsville on Crystal Lake. And if you look over to the left of that picture, that's Buck Hill ski area. And we came into an existing neighborhood and retrofitted the existing neighborhood with 17 rain gardens, including some in the backyards. We had a perfect opportunity to monitor this with a control neighborhood and a treatment area, and they both came off to the same infrastructure down at the bottom end of the drainage area. After letting the vegetation establish for a year and blocking it off, we opened it up, and the monitoring results, we had a year to compare the monitoring results so you can see how they're pretty darn close for the rainfall events. And then when we took the sandbags off of the curb inlets, all of a sudden we noticed, holy moly, would you look at that? And an 85% volume reduction in an existing neighborhood. That's why we've got communities like Stillwater and White Bear Lake that are embracing this in all of their stormwater retrofits. Down in Burnsville, we took a yard that looked like this. And Fred Rozumowski at Bar Engineering, when a landscape architect, he went door to door and asked them, what kind of plants do you like? What do you want this to look like? So not only does it do what we want it to do in stormwater, but it can also be a beautiful thing. I walk a lot around White Bear Lake, and White Bear has embraced this in their street retrofit programs. Absolutely beautiful stuff in people's front yards, and every neighbor I talk to as I walk, they all embrace it. So in my mind, the way is now clear. You know, I mean, as a part of this, back in 2012, when the Clean Water Legacy funding was first coming in, we had an opportunity to sit down with the senator that was the head of the Environmental Resources Committee up at the legislature. And he had put a rain garden in his backyard, and he had asked the lobbyist for the Builders Association, you know, how could we do this? How could we make this more of how we do business in Minnesota? And Lisa said, oh boy, I know just who you need to talk to. And all of a sudden the phones lit up, and there were a bunch of us that got to meet with him on a Monday morning. And he said, okay, well, here's the deal. I'll be happy to take this legislation, you know, through the process, but we're facing the deadline for new legislation, and I need to have this by Tuesday. Well, it was Monday. So we all left the Capitol and ran across to the lunchroom at the Department of Transportation, and none of us had ever written a bill before. Ever. We didn't even know how to start wording it, but we did know what we wanted, and this is what it came out to be. The minimal impact design standards, or MIDS as it's known, is an approach to stormwater management that mimics the natural hydrology of the site as the landscape is developed. And so rate and volume of pre-development stormwater reaching the receiving waters remains unchanged. And then the actual pre-development hydrology was based on native soil and vegetation, not row crops or that curve number. So our curve number was actually 38 instead of that 68 that we had of the soybean field down in Rosemont that got changed to residential development. So as a result of this 3-year effort, we were able to develop a higher clean water performance goal than what the NPDES permit requires at 1.1 inches. We were also able to develop new modeling and credit calculations that kind of standardize this. And the Pollution Control Agency affirmed this by saying, okay, if you guys use the MIDS calculator, we will take that information and an MS4 community can show us using that calculator and the results of the calculator that you are meeting your TMDL requirements and meeting your goals for your stormwater management. And then we came up with a credit system and an ordinance package. And that's where I came into the game, that allowed for increased flexibility. Now, this was quite a group, 3 years of meeting in the basement of the MPCA and 35 different organizations. And it was all consensus based. We all had to agree. And there were a lot of different people that thought, well, maybe. And then, yes, and we all agreed and we worked on. And the end result was new performance goals for new development, redevelopment, highway, linear projects. But we knew that we also needed to be flexible because there are times that we can't do that. So we built 3 different flexible treatment options into the program when a site just can't meet the goal. We also developed the credit calculator, which has been refined ever since 2013 and has become a standard for determining what sort of pollutant removal we can get by, first of all, let's say putting a green roof on the building, running it down to a rain garden down below, filtering it through there out to an infiltration basin. All those give credit for every step that we take in what we call the treatment train. And then we wrote all that into ordinances. And this isn't the first time that we started looking at this. Back in 2000, a little earlier than that, I was working for the Pollution Control Agency, and one Friday afternoon, my boss, Gene Soderbeck, came in and said, "Hey, Jay, you're the last one here." And I said, "Yeah, and I'm not going to be here too much longer, Gene." And he said, "Well, congratulations. That makes you our expert in writing a model ordinance." And that's how I got started in model ordinances. We developed it at the Pollution Control Agency as the NPDES permit was going from 5 acres down to 1 acre. And the MS4 program was expanding dramatically from just Minneapolis and St. Paul to hundreds of communities that were going to have to be into it. The Environmental Quality Board stepped it up a bit, and we included it in their model ordinance package. Then in 2008, we had the opportunity to through some grant funding to update it again and tie it into the DNR's shoreland effort. So this has been evolving since about 1997. And when the MIDS program came in, we continued the evolution and developed the community assistance package that integrates everything that we did in the MIDS studies and the credit calculator, and developed it as a package of ordinances and policy that integrate this into the fabric of each community. And in the end, it will allow them to meet their total maximum daily loads, their MS4s, their anti-degradation, outstanding resource value water programs, meet all the goals that are set by the state and federal agencies. This is all based in what Tom Schuler, my old friend, called better site design, which is really pretty simple. It's taking a look at your site and preserving the natural areas, trying to reduce impervious surfaces where we can, distributing the runoff over the entire site, and using these areas where we can soak water into the ground. And even if it's a porous pavement parking lot or a parking lot that's built over a sandy soil, and we can use underground treatment to accomplish that goal. Open space protection, starting with taking a look at your site, and the first thing I always look at are where are the soils where we can get water into the ground, and what do we need to protect? Reducing impervious cover. Where can we minimize street widths and parking spaces? And where can we actually put the water back down into the ground even when we need an impervious surface? Distributing the runoff over the site. This photo in the background of one of my past lives, I actually owned an asphalt paving company, and we paved this parking lot. In a following life, we came in and actually redesigned it to put the water back down into the ground, as opposed to running it off from Oak Park Heights down to the river. The new world is called reuse, and you know, this is kind of like one of those aha moments. Well, we got a stormwater pond that's been sitting out there. Why don't we put a pump on it and capture it and use it for the, you know, for irrigation? Right now up here at the intersection of Manning Avenue and Highway 36, the golf course at the corner is capturing the runoff off of the new development of the interchange and running in. We're just about ready to hook that up in the next few days and flip the switch on the power. The MIDS concepts that we put into the ordinance are basically trying to implement the standards and the credit calculator, that we provide standards for managing both the velocity and the volume, trying to maximize putting the water back down into the ground through infiltration and you know, where can we get the most bang for the buck. We also need to keep in mind that we've got salt and cold weather and you know, 4 months of the year where our precipitation is frozen instead. Utilizing buffers and vegetation management to treat the stormwater and you know, regulating the types and locations of impervious surfaces. When it comes to erosion and sediment control, and that's also part of the model ordinance, is you know, just using some common sense on scheduling the land disturbing activities to button them up as fast as you can. And actually, you know, financial securities is a big part of the ordinance package, and releasing that financial security as a contractor or a developer does this. Maintaining soil stability through the effective use of our practices, and trying to implement a cost-effective inspection, maintenance, and enforcement program. And that's really kind of one of the subtle things that we work with these communities on. Is, you know, not all communities have the manpower and the staffing to be able to do this. So how can we share that across watershed districts and soil water conservation districts? And, you know, how can we get everybody playing out of the same playbook and working together to develop a really, really good program? And in the end, we can create something like this as opposed to something like that. I've used every minute of my time, but I'm open for some questions.
So again, kind of liking that back to the plan. And so one of the things that I am working on, one of my deliverables, quote unquote, is that working with Jay, we have hired him as a consultant to assist us, to be able to start approaching our municipalities, and being able to look at whether they're at a point that they're interested in being able to assess their current stormwater ordinance package, if it exists in their ordinance package. With the overall, the 10-year goal for the plan is that we would have an additional 20 communities throughout the Lower St. Croix watershed to be able to incorporate either a mid-level standard in their ordinances or even more restrictive. Just to be able to get them thinking about stormwater upfront when it comes to development versus as that afterthought. And so we've allocated funding to help the communities go through this process. We recognize that it is asking these communities to come to the table and meet with us and talk with us, to be able to meet with their city councils and their planning commissions, And so we do have funding available to help those meetings happen and to help them move through that process. We are working with Rush City, North Branch, Chisago City, Marino and St. Croix, and Scandia this year, and assessing that interest and seeing if any of them are interested in being able to take a look, review, updates, move on, or whether it's also just like, if that's interesting, we'll come back to you. And if there are other communities in the lower St. Croix that are interested, obviously contact me.
Will Jay be giving this presentation to these communities?
Oh, probably.
I would encourage you to.
Yeah, no.
It's kind of the beginning of the whole thing, this Stormwater 101. And yeah, I've given it a time or two, and it's a great place to start. So
yeah. I should mention also that Barbara and I created a 10-minute video that is kind of a teaser that can be emailed out and shared with communities as like an intro to getting excited and having Jay come and give this presentation. So Tiffany Detterman with Isanti SWCD was able to help us get a $3,600 grant. And then we're going to be using some MREP funds and some Lower St. Croix funds. We have it all written, and then we just need to get that produced. So it'll be like a nice little animated video. Yes, yes. Once it gets done, I will. Matt Moore, I saw that you had your hand up, though.
Thanks, Angie. Jay, I have 4 things for you.
Awesome.
Let me pick up my pen, Matt.
Why are we still working? Number 2 is, why would you give regs credit for anything? I appreciate your history. And if people want to see where we have been and where we've come to, go look for an article from Andrew Reese. It's called The Stormwater Paradigm. And it starts out with put it in ditches, and it ends with green and Barrett. Thanks, Jay.
Hey, you bet, Matt. Good to see you. And why do I keep working? Well, I just turned 70, and I get asked that a lot. And I thrive on every morning being able to get up and still make a difference. I'm a lousy golfer. I can only fish so much. Yeah, I could go do a whole bunch of stuff on the house here, but at the same time, you know, it's rare when someone has the opportunity to wake up in the morning and make a difference, and that's what keeps me driving along. So
that's
and
great.
you too, my friend.
That's great.
Thank you, Jay, very much for all you do. I just want to make a comment.
Well, thank you, everybody. And if you've got any ideas, reach out to Barbara and Angie or me. And gee, I was hoping to be able to tell some tales and swap some stories this afternoon, but that was one of the most bizarre things I've ever seen come up on a flash drive. That I'm still a little worried about that flash drive. Do you still have that, Barbara, or did I take it?
No, you took it. I do not have it.
I did, huh? Well, it was working fine when I left here. So thanks, everybody.
I just want to make a comment.
Jay, this is Jackie Anderson talking, if you can hear her.
Jackie Anderson, Watershed.
Hi, Jackie.
Watching your presentation was like the story of Comfort Lake Forest Lake Watershed just founded. I mean, that's exactly the scenario, was an agricultural area changing to urban, and that urban pressure, and finding out that the quantity of water was actually the problem, and that we had lower ratings for the pollutant loads because of the quantity of water. And so once we got that all in balance, then we started seeing things change. And at the same time as the project work started, we did address the rulemaking need. And so it took a few years to get that, but during that initial 3 years before the rules actually were in place, the communities were all very supportive of this and brought their plans to the watershed to be reviewed, even though we didn't have standards in place. So it really helps when you've got cooperative LGUs and everybody understands the problem. So that's a great presentation. I think it's gonna really resonate all over. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you. And keep up all the good stuff that you guys are doing. That's fantastic.
Thank you. So Angie,
All right.
I'm aware that it's almost 6 o'clock.
I know. I think our final thing that the group needed to discuss was just the fact that we are meeting again on October 23rd. Okay. Okay. So, this is just kind of a quick poll of the room. So what we would like to do at the October meeting is give you a presentation about the Sunrise River Wetland Enhancement Project that Comfort Lake Forest Lake has completed, and the Trout Brook Re-Meander Restoration Project that South Washington is working on. There has been discussion of trying to visit these projects in person. The Sunrise River one is just down the road, but Emily Hines has told me there is nowhere for people to park and no way for anybody to safely get out and walk and look at it. The Trout Brook project, we could go and see because we could park at Afton Alps. We could very easily walk along down there and see it. And then we would, if we wanted to like walk and see it and then meet, we'd have to go up the road then and, you know, meet either at the DNR's building at Afton State Park or somewhere in Cottage Grove. But that would mean everybody who lives up north would be having to drive all the way down to Afton for us to meet down in person in Afton. So that was a question that I just thought I would broach to the group. Do you want to just hear a PowerPoint presentation about both of these projects with photos and videos, or do you want to try to meet in person down in Afton to be able to see one of them in real life?
I would go to Afton, but I'm not as far north.
Yes.
You know, could we do
I'm
something?
as far north as, but I think I'm gonna be.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Okay.
That's a good one.
All right.
Angie, is it possible that people who want to could attend seeing it and then the actual meeting starts later? And
We
is
could see.
more accessible?
We could see if we could do something like that. Yes, we could see if we could plan an auxiliary activity. Yeah.
Yeah, I would vote for having the presentations. If you did a presentation on a summer tour where we didn't all go out in person, so that's very effective. So I would recommend doing that in October. For our project, we just got plants in here just a few weeks ago because of the too much rain. That delayed a lot of things and getting all the prettiness of what it's going to end up looking like. And we were storing a lot of water. Yeah. And that was pretty, but the full effect isn't really going to be there until spring.
Okay.
So what I would recommend is that we plan for a tour, or maybe we rent a bus and we take people around, not just those two projects, but some other things too.
So that's something we could consider a late spring, early summer tour of next year to maybe visit. We could try to do, you know, a handful, 5 projects or something.
Potentially so. And so I have a neighborhood drone pilot friend in my back pocket. I'm actually taking him out to Chisago Lakes this weekend to shoot some stuff. So potentially. At some point he probably will ask me to actually pay him. But we'll see. Yeah, no, that could potentially be available. That'd be really fun. He'd love doing that.
Okay, well, that answers my question. Then we will plan on October meeting here. And I will tell the South Washington and Comfort Lake Forest Lake staff to go ahead and prepare, a presentation that's got photos and videos so you can all get an idea of what those two projects look like. Since they're major projects, that, I'm sure everybody wants to know that they're completed successfully. So yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Can I ask for another motion? Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
All right. Okay.
Angie,
Oh,
Angie.
yes, Matt, yes.
real quick, John, do you have any?
He muted himself. Hey, John Loomis, I think Matt Moore is trying to put you on the spot.
John,
See if there's
do you have
anything you
any
want to
other
say.
comments on Trout
I do not, but I will say if anybody wants to come down and take a tour, let us know. We don't have to do it as a group at one time.
We have 12 going, John.
Tours, approximately. I don't know.
Yeah, I know that the Clean Water Council is stopping.
Clean
by
water
to
is
visit.
coming, yeah.
September 18th, I think, is stopping by to visit that project. So if you were interested, you could always kind of try to, tag team with that and show up at the same time the Clean Water Council is and walk around with them.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right. Goodbye, everybody online. I'm hanging up on you now.